If I walk up to you in the street and I told you, hey, I don't know you, but can you show me your bank account, please? You probably wouldn't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
But this is how blockchains work today. It doesn't make sense. Blockchains are not meant to be transparent. They're meant to be publicly verifiable, but it doesn't mean that everything has to be made public. And FHE is solving exactly that problem. FHE allows you to have public verifiability on an encrypted data that's on-chain. And that's why it's such a big revolution, is because it doesn't change the way blockchains work. It just adds privacy on top of existing blockchains. So for example, if you're sending money to someone on-chain, your balance is encrypted, the amount you're sending is encrypted, so people don't know how much money you have, how much money you're sending, but it's still a smart contract running in Ethereum that is actually making a transaction. So this is actually incredible. Think about it a little bit like HTTPS, but for blockchain transactions. And this is what Zama specifically is doing. Zama, when we found out that we could apply this for blockchain, it was very clear to us that this was the big use case for FHE.
Welcome to the latest episode of Day One Global. Recently, we witnessed the explosion breakthrough in blockchain privacy technology. And the trend is crystal clear. As small traditional finance players enter crypto, we are seeing that privacy isn't just nice to have, it's essential. Without robust privacy infrastructure, the $100 trillion sitting in TradFi will never truly move on-chain.
That's where Zama comes in, which have brought privacy technology FHE from the lab into the production. They have already processed over 1 million encrypted transactions on Ethereum's testnet, and mainnet launch is right around the corner.
Today, we are very excited to have Rand Hindi, co-founder and CEO of Zama, joining us to unpack privacy technology, Zama's vision, and what it takes to bring the holy grail of cryptography to the real world. Welcome, Rand.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Before we deep dive into Zama, introduce more about your career and your journey into crypto, into cryptography.
Of course. My name is Rand. I've been a developer since I was a kid, built my first company as a teenager when I was 14 years old. Then after that, did a PhD in artificial intelligence when I was 21. So that was back in 2007. After this, I built one of the first AI company focusing on privacy called Snips, which got acquired in 2019. And since 2020, I've been building Zama with my co-founder Pascal Payet, who's one of the inventors of homomorphic encryption. I'm also an investor. I invest in early stage biotech, crypto, AI companies. I've invested over 100 companies today. And I've been in crypto specifically since 2013. So I think this is my fourth cycle. So,
Wow, real OG.
Well, when people on Twitter freak out because there is a sudden crash of 20%, I'm like,
Nothing.
Yeah, same with us.
Yeah, I think, it's at some point you get used to the craziness and volatility of crypto, and you learn one thing that's very important is this technology, blockchain, is important for the future. And so it doesn't matter what happens in the short term as long as you're a long-term holder. And this is my strategy. Everything I do in crypto, I buy and hold. I never sell. I never trade. I never leverage. I just hold for as long as I can.
Yes, and I'm very curious about your career. From you began the privacy before the blockchain. Your first company, Slips. That's maybe 10 years ago. Yeah, my question is, why choose privacy throughout your journey after the PhD? Was there a specific moment or event that made you realize that the critical importance of privacy technology?
Absolutely. I started caring about privacy when I built my first company when I was 14 years old. That was in 1999. At the time, I built a social network with a friend of mine. And, when you build a social network, you realize how much data you have on people, right? I was looking at the data. I was like, oh my God, if I wanted to, I could see everybody's messages. I could read all those private conversations. That doesn't feel right. Just because I'm the service provider doesn't mean I'm allowed to see people's private information. And so for me, it was very obvious already back then that privacy was going to become more and more of an issue as we started using more and more digital services. So during my PhD, my thesis was on using artificial intelligence for genetic data. And when you manipulate DNA, privacy is also very important. And so I was like, okay, so AI needs privacy, websites need privacy, so everybody needs privacy. I want to figure out a solution to that problem. And my whole life, everything I've built was actually one way or another incorporating privacy as a core element of what I did.
Yeah, that's interesting because I saw your career was sitting at the intersection of blockchain, AI, and then biology. Like it's really a broad range of issues and topics.
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, privacy, biology, and AI are all the same thing. They're about data. Biology might not seem like it, but at the end of the day, when you look at DNA, when you look at your blood test, you're looking at data, you're analyzing data. So there's fundamentally no real difference in how you understand biology versus how you understand any kind of other complex data system. So I would say that my career has been about data and finding ways to analyze, use, and protect the data.
Mm. And speaking about crypto, actually privacy and the cryptography have been discussed like in every crypto cycle. So like Vitalik published 3 articles about ZK proofs and privacy on his blog in 2023 or long before. Though it felt like a niche discussion then, but this cycle feels very different. Even like recently, Naval is now publicly talking about privacy and Zcash. So there's some mania about privacy now. So more and more people are joining the privacy conversation. So what do you think is driving this shift? And why has privacy become more important now? So is there something fundamentally different happening?
I think so. Well, there are 2 things. First, I think Zama showed that privacy could scale for blockchain applications. So I think, the fact that Zama solved that problem made people realize that they can start using privacy technologies in everyday blockchain applications. But beyond that, I think the main driver is if you look at finance that's moving on chain, it's very obvious that you need confidentiality for most financial transactions. If your bank wants to use stablecoins to hold your bank account money, well, clearly they need that to be private because they don't want everybody else to see your bank account. It doesn't make sense. If you're a trader at JP Morgan and you're managing billions of dollars of assets, you don't want your trades to be public because you're disclosing to everybody what your strategy is. So I think the reason why people care about privacy suddenly is not because they care about privacy, is because they realize that without privacy and confidentiality, there is never going to be mass adoption of blockchain. And I think this is really, for me, the turning point is up until this cycle, there was no big adoption of blockchain. This is the first time that major institutions, the serious players, are entering the game. And they need confidentiality. It's not negotiable.
So without confidentiality, there will be no mass adoption from the institution side.
It's impossible. I mean, think about what you do outside of blockchain. If I walk up to you in the street and I told you, hey, I don't know you, but can you show me your bank account, please? You probably wouldn't want to do that, right? But this is how blockchains work today. It doesn't make sense. Blockchains are not meant to be transparent. They're meant to be publicly verifiable, but it doesn't mean that everything has to be made public. And FHE is solving exactly that problem. FHE allows you to have public verifiability on an encrypted data that's on-chain. And that's why it's such a big revolution, is because it doesn't change the way blockchains work. It just adds privacy on top of existing blockchains.
Yes, I totally agree.
When we started the company 5 years ago, we didn't really know what we wanted to use homomorphic encryption for. So maybe let me backtrack a bit and explain what FHE is. So FHE, Fully Homomorphic Encryption, is an encryption technique where you can compute blindly on the encrypted data itself. So for example, if I want to use ChatGPT, today I'm sending my data to OpenAI, they analyze it and they send back a response. If they're using FHE, I would send an encrypted query to ChatGPT. OpenAI does not have the key to see it, but it can still process the encrypted query and send an encrypted response that I can decrypt. So for me, it's the same service, but now the data is encrypted when I send it and during the processing. So it's encrypted end-to-end. So think of it as end-to-end encryption for any kind of online service that you're using. So why is that important for blockchain specifically? In the case of blockchain, it means that you can have smart contracts that operate on encrypted transaction and state. So for example, if you're sending money to someone on chain, your balance is encrypted, the amount you're sending is encrypted, so people don't know how much money you have, how much money you're sending, but it's still a smart contract running in Ethereum that is actually making a transaction. So this is actually incredible. Think about it a little bit like HTTPS, but for blockchain transactions. And this is what Zama specifically is doing. Zama, when we found out that we could apply this for blockchain, it was very clear to us that this was the big use case for FHE. And so we decided to build the Zama protocol to enable confidentiality using FHE on top of any existing public blockchain like Ethereum, Solana, Binance Chain, Tron, and so on and so forth.
Yes, there are a lot of questions. Also, have many discussion on Twitter. There are many private storage besides FHE. We have ZK, we have TE, we have MPC. Could you explain a little bit more? Which is the strengths or limitations for these each other technologies?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So Zama today, we've looked at everything, to be clear, right? I have 100 people in the company, 37 PhDs. Some of the best researchers in privacy in the world are working at Zama today. So we've looked at everything. We're very pragmatic. We use whatever is the right technology for the job. The reason why FHE is the best solution is it's secure, it's composable, and it's verifiable. FHE is secure even against quantum computers. So the data you're encrypting today and putting on chain cannot be broken by future quantum computers. So this is really important. And if you look at something like TEEs, trusted enclaves, they have been completely broken. In the past 6 weeks, 2 papers came out showing that Intel's implementation of TEE was broken, and every single blockchain that relies on TEE immediately was broken. And it's not the fault of the blockchain, it's the fault of Intel who messed up the implementation. And Intel made an announcement saying they don't care because they consider that blockchain is not part of what TEEs are supposed to secure. So Intel said, do not use TEEs for blockchain, it's a bad idea. So TEEs for blockchain is basically dead at this point. Nobody's gonna use it. MPC, great technology. We use it in Zama for key management. However, when you use it for computation of the state, it's very complicated because MPC is hard to verify. So you're losing public verifiability of the encrypted state with MPC. FHE is publicly verifiable. Anybody can recompute the FHE state and verify that it's correct. This is very important. In blockchain, the number one thing is don't trust, verify. And FHE today enables you to not trust and verify, which is quite important. And finally, ZK. Lots of people talk about ZK. ZK is a fantastic technology for scalability. However, the problem is that you cannot compute on ZK proofs. So if I'm using ZK for transferring tokens privately, let's say Zcash, for example, I can send money privately with ZK, but I cannot do anything else. I cannot stake my shielded Zcash. I cannot build DeFi on top of my shielded Zcash. FHE tokens are composable the same way a regular ERC20 token is composable. So you can have DeFi on top of confidential FHE tokens. You can have confidential swaps on top of FHE tokens. Anything you do with a regular token, you can do with an FHE token now. And so that's why people are excited about FHE, is because it doesn't change the way blockchains work. It just adds confidentiality on top of existing blockchains like Ethereum, like Solana, like Base, like Binance, like Tron, and so on and so forth.
So it's verifiable and composable.
And secure, which is, it's not secure, there's no point.
Yeah, so super clear.
Yes, super clear. And we just noticed that the Zama acquired ZK company Tatarot.
Yes.
Yeah, we see the announcement yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very happy about this one. The Kakarot team is one of the best ZK Rollup team. And for us at Zama, we wanted to make sure that we were able to scale our protocol to support hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. Because if you want FHE to be used for global payments on chain, you need to scale to extremely high capacity. And so we acquired Kakarot literally because these guys are some of the best blockchain engineers and scalability engineers at the moment. So we're very happy about this acquisition. It's the first one that Zama did, first company that we acquired. Yeah, really awesome.
Yeah, so you also combine FHE and ZK technology to solve some of the scalability problems.
Eventually, I think so. So what I told the Kakarot team is, I'm like, I don't care how you scale it. I just want you to scale it. So, at the end of the day, what matters is we want 100,000 transactions per second. We don't care how we get there. That's the goal.
Mm. We noticed that FHE is called a holy grail of cryptography. So also curious about it, why has it only recently started to see practical applications? And what kind of new use cases or adoptions will FHE uniquely unlock or enable?
FHE is not a new idea. People started working on it in 1972, I think. So, it's been over 50 years
50
of research.
years. Right.
50 years of research for FHE. My co-founder, Pascal Payet, is one of the early inventors of FHE. He invented the first way to add encrypted numbers. It's called the Payet scheme, still very popular. People use it a lot still. But what was difficult before was three things. It was difficult to build FHE technology that could be used for anything, smart contracts, AI, databases. Nobody knew how to do something that was general purpose. It was very specific to some use cases. The second problem is it was very difficult to use as a developer. You needed to learn cryptography and understand how to, change like all of the details. And finally, it was not very scalable. In the early days, it took half an hour to make an FHE token transfer. So, not very user-friendly. Well, I guess Bitcoin takes tens of minutes, but
Yeah.
most blockchain today, people want things in less than 1 second. So FHE was not able to do that before. We solved those problems at Zama. We basically worked on a technology called TFHE, which allows you to have any kind of application in FHE. We can do AI in FHE. We can do blockchain in FHE. We can do databases in FHE. We can do medical data analysis in FHE. So there is no longer a limitation in what you can do with this technology. The second problem that we solved is developer experience. So today we've integrated FHE into existing developer tools. For example, if you want to build a confidential application on Ethereum, you write everything in Solidity, just like any other smart contract, and you deploy that to Ethereum, just like any other smart contract. So as a developer, you don't have to learn anything new. You just create your application and not worry about how things work in the background. So we've solved the developer problem. And finally, performance. Today, Zama is about 1,000 times faster than when we started the company 5 years ago. And the performance is improving by 10x every year, mostly due to better hardware now. So effectively for us at Zama, moving from CPU to GPU is going to get us to 1,000 TPS, transactions per second, which is enough for every L2 and most of Solana. And moving from GPU to ASICs, so special hardware to accelerate FHE, will get us to 100,000 TPS. So FHE now for Zama is no longer a math problem, it's a compute problem. If we invest more money on better hardware to accelerate FHE, it will go faster and the addressable market will grow bigger. It's that simple. FHE now is basically a compute problem, just like AI, just like all of these other things.
That's great. I also checked the graph on Zama's website. Currently, I think it's close to the TPS of Ethereum mainnet.
Correct.
Yeah, I think like 3 years later, the graph shows it's like 1,000 times again compared to the previous 1,000 times. Wow, that's amazing.
I mean, you know what? Actually, I had a discussion with Zama's investors. I looked at the original pitch that I did to my investors a few years ago, right? When we raised money the first time. And Zama has actually made more progress on performance than what I told my investors years ago. So even I did not anticipate how quickly FHE was going to grow. Like, it's to tell you how good our team is. we've been exceeding anything that people expected. And there's an important learning in this. A lot of the problems that people think are impossible to solve is just because nobody actually tried and nobody actually put together a team with the right resources to solve that problem. So Zama, we're lucky in the sense that my co-founder is a very famous researcher. So he was able to attract all of the best researchers on the planet to work on this at Zama. And I was fortunate to find great investors who believed in the vision of FHE and who funded Zama before we had anything that worked. The first time I raised money, I told my investors, I will not have a business for at least 3 or 4 years. And they still invested because they knew that this technology was important, right? So, when people ask, why do you need investors? Because of that, because you need people to fund you until you can solve the technology and build the use cases. Zama today would not be here without the people in the company and without the investors to fund the research that led us to that.
Yes. Yeah, we also noticed that Zama has raised over 130 millions from the top VCs like Pantera and Multicoin. Yeah, I think it's very inspiring.
As I said, I think these investors are some of the most successful investors in history. Pantera and Multicoin are basically, I think, the 2 most successful crypto investors, period. I think Pantera did 1,000x return on their Bitcoin fund. Multicoin made hundreds of X's on their fund with Solana. They invested in Solana at seed stage and they're still holding today and they're buying today, actually. Those investors are smart. They don't invest in companies unless they think that what the company does is absolutely huge and can completely change the market. And, of course, I believe that as a founder. I wouldn't be doing Zama if I didn't think that this could be a huge thing. But having investors like that believe and invest in Zama at very high valuations too, right? $1 billion valuation, that shows you how big this technology can be, right? Try to imagine it this way. To take again the HTTPS example, okay? So what HTTPS does, when you connect to a website, it's encrypting the data you're sending to the website and receiving back. What Zama does for blockchain is that we're encrypting transactions and states. So whenever you make a transaction on a blockchain, the transaction is encrypted. So in a way, Zama and HTTPS are similar in the way they function, logically speaking. Imagine if every time someone connected to a website, you charge them a fraction of a cent. That would be a pretty good business. And that's what Zama is actually doing.
That's how Zama will generate revenue.
Yeah, we simply charge every time you encrypt and decrypt data, you have to pay a small fee to the Zama protocol.
And you guys call it HTTP Z.
HTTPS. Yes. Well,
Yeah, I think we can talk more about Zama. Yeah. Could you introduce Zama in 1 sentence? Yeah, to a grandma or grandpa.
So Zama adds a layer of confidentiality to existing public blockchains like Ethereum and Solana. It allows you to have confidential tokens that you can use in confidential DeFi for confidential payments and anything else that you're doing on public blockchains today.
Yeah, so is it a L1 or L2?
It's not a new L1 or L2. Zama sits on top of existing L1s and L2s. So for example, if you have stablecoins on Ethereum, you can convert them to confidential stablecoins, and you can now use them for confidential payments, confidential transfers, confidential salaries, or anything else you want to do. You don't need to bridge your assets to a new chain. You don't have to do anything else than just wrap them into a confidential version wherever you are today. And that's really important for us. There are too many L1s and L2s, honestly, right?
Exactly.
What we want is to solve confidentiality on existing ones. Ethereum is fine, Solana is fine, Base is fine, Tron is fine. These are good infrastructure, good L1s and L2s. We don't need to add a new one just for privacy. Privacy is not something that you want to have in a small environment. Privacy is something you want everywhere, and that's what Zama is doing. We sit on top of existing chains.
So it's compatible, or you can say it's integrated with all kinds of public blockchains like EVMs or SVMs.
So we are launching on Ethereum first, then other EVM chains early 2026, and Solana is planned for the second half of 2026.
Last time in Singapore, I checked the use case, like sending stable coins. Then you can in the demo, I see that the balance is not shown in the screen, but you can still know the age, transfer money to B, like only hiding the balances. So it's very different experience compared with like
ZK.
Tornado Cash or
Yeah.
ZK
Is
products.
the opposite, actually. When you're using ZK, you're hiding the identity of the people transacting. So you don't know who sent money to whom, but you can usually see the amount. In the case of FHE, you're not hiding the identity in the trace, you're hiding the amount itself. So a good analogy is if you compare Signal to Tor. So Tor is a way to connect to a public website by anonymizing your IP address. So basically you're accessing public content in a private, anonymous way. That's what Tor does. And this is what Tornado Cash and mixers are typically doing. Governments hate mixers and they hate Tor because they cannot actually do compliance unless they know who the people involved are. FHE is like Signal. Signal, when I send you a message on Signal, I'm using, a telecom operator. So the telecom operator can see my phone connecting to your phone, but they don't see the message that I'm sending you. This is what FHE does. People can see that I sent you something, but they don't know how much you have or how much money I sent you, right? So Zama is like Signal, and this is fine because as long as you have traceability, you can have compliance. And compliance, whether we like it or not, is necessary for finance to even exist on public blockchain. So finance will not do non-compliant transactions. Finance will do compliant transactions, and FHE is the best way to do that.
Understand. So it's both confidential and compliant to the
Absolutely. In
to the
fact,
standard of government or
look,
institutions.
we don't even do it. So what we did is we included tools in the Zama protocol to enable token issuers and application developers to build their own compliance logic in their contracts. So we're not telling them this is how you should be compliant. We're telling them you can program your compliance rules in your smart contract directly. I'll give you an example. Let's imagine I'm a stablecoin issuer, okay? And I have a confidential stablecoins where transfers and balances are encrypted, okay? So nobody on chain can see the balances and amounts. In my contract, I can decide who is allowed to decrypt the balances and the transfers. So I will want the user to see their own balance. Of course, you should be able to see how much money you have. That's normal. But I can also give myself, as the token issuer, the ability to see all the balances of my own users. And by doing that, I can comply off-chain with any kind of regulation I have to. And this is actually how banks are working today. When you have your money in a bank, you see your bank account. Your bank sees your bank account, but your neighbor doesn't. We can now recreate the same model on public blockchains. So compliance for us is something that is obviously needed in every application that you're doing financially, but we're giving the people building those applications the tools to be compliant. In fact, like the Zama protocol doesn't do any private thing by default. It gives you tools to build private applications and tokens.
Yeah, I think it's very smart. Yeah, it's like an essential condition for the mass adoption. Yeah.
Of course. And I think, we've been very clear from the beginning, Zama, our goal is to enable legitimate use cases that require confidentiality on public blockchains. Finance, identity, elections, government services, payments, anything that you want to do on a public blockchain that is a real legitimate use case. We need to make sure that people can build those without having to worry about being compliant, right? To say it differently, we are not trying to solve a problem for bad guys. We're trying to solve a problem for good guys. And good guys, they want to be compliant. That's the reality.
Yeah, I remember several years ago, I had a friend who is a crypto whale. He wanted to try to claim some rewards without disclosing how much
Yeah.
money and giving out his wallet addresses. So I think Zama's use cases can support this kind of
Oh, totally.
yeah.
I think this is actually, if I look at the different use cases that people are building right now, so payments is a very obvious one. So confidential payments, very big use case. Another one that I see a lot of people wanting to do is confidential token distribution, vesting, and treasury management. So if you are a crypto company, okay, and you need to distribute tokens to your team, to your investors, to your developer community, you don't want everybody to know how much every address is getting, right? And most investors, they don't want people to know when they're selling tokens because, people on social media then go crazy. They're like, oh my God, Multicoin just sold tokens. It's a bad sign. You don't know. Maybe they just have to pay taxes. You know what I mean? Like whatever the reasons. With FHE, you can distribute tokens confidentially and you can have vesting on confidential tokens. So people don't know how many tokens everybody's getting. But you can also do confidential swaps. So for example, your whale example, they could claim their tokens confidentially. So people would not know how much they're claiming. In fact, the Zama protocol itself, the staking feature will allow you to stake confidential tokens and receive confidential staking rewards, right? So this is a huge use case because again, people don't want this data to be public. They had no choice before because FHE did not exist, but now that it exists, I can guarantee you that 95% of every transaction in the future will be encrypted with Zama and with FHE.
Because now we have the new standard and option to do that.
Yeah. And people want that. People want confidentiality.
Could you share us a more user experience when using testnet on Zama? Yeah, which types of applications are most popular?
So there's one application, I'll give you an example, an application I love because I think it's such a good use case. It's a new company, so you haven't heard about it yet. It's called Raycash. Raycash is an on-chain bank that cannot rug your money. So how does it work, right? It's a banking app. You have a debit card, you have an IBAN to make wires, but your money is kept on-chain using confidential stablecoins. So people don't know how much money you have because it's encrypted, but because it's on-chain, if the company or the bank goes bankrupt, you can always just send your stablecoins to a different wallet, right? The government cannot seize your assets because it's self-custodial. You have the keys to your assets on-chain. The bank cannot freeze your assets because they don't control those assets. But because it's FHE tokens, you can even stake them to earn yield on your bank account. You can swap it for crypto if you want to invest in crypto. You can do everything that you can do in a modern banking app, but completely on-chain, completely self-custodial, without any risk of losing your money because your bank or government wants to rug you. So I'm from Lebanon originally, right? Lebanon, people got rugged completely. Like people woke up a few years ago, the government said, hey, we don't have any more money. Sorry, we're going to freeze all of your bank accounts in dollars. Boom, done. All the money gone. This is impossible if your money is on chain and you own the keys. And this is what this company is basically solving. So think about every country where people have been rugged by their financial system, by their government, or maybe their currency got devalued and they want dollars or whatever. They could use that and basically never have to worry about that again.
Now I can imagine that because so many major stablecoin issuers, they're also launching their own chain, like Arc from Circle, like Stripe launching Temple. Maybe they can all integrate this feature in the near future.
Actually, they don't even have to do it. Zama can deploy the Zama protocol anywhere as long as we can deploy smart contracts. So for Tempo and Arc to support FHE, there's nothing Tempo and Arc has to do. That's the beautiful thing. We can deploy the smart contracts on Tempo and Arc, and instantly, people will have confidential stablecoin payments. If you ask me what's the really, really best solution, I would say FHE stablecoins is really what you want. FHE stablecoin on big, existing, trusted blockchain infrastructure is really the best solution.
So just now you mentioned there's FHE standard token. So maybe from a developer's perspective, How should they do to enable this kind of experience? And how will you introduce to them to where to start? Yeah.
We are pushing for a new standard, the ERC 7984, which standardizes confidential tokens on EVM chains. So any developer who wants to support confidential tokens only has to support ERC 7984, and that will work with Zama, but also other privacy projects that support the same standard. So this is not just about Zama. This is a general confidential token standard. For Zama specifically, the actual transaction is on-chain. It's a regular transaction on a regular smart contract. The only additional thing developers have to do is they have to encrypt and decrypt the data for the user in the front-end application. So this is literally just calling the Zama protocol saying, hey, encrypt this data or decrypt this data. And then that's the only extra work that you have to do. So let's say, for example, you have a payment application. You want to send 10 confidential USDC to someone. The application would encrypt the $10 amount, send it to Ethereum. Ethereum will make the actual transfer, and then the application will decrypt your balance on the application side as well. So the user doesn't even have to worry about that. The user is just using a payment app, and the developer only has to integrate encryption and decryption on top of the traditional transaction that they're doing. So you can actually go on the docs.zama.org to find all of that. It's very, very easy. It's just Solidity, so there's no need to learn a new language. You can just write your contracts the same way you do, and you can try today on our existing testnet and in a few weeks on our first mainnet.
So for the developers, no matter they're from the Ethereum ecosystem or Solana ecosystem, they don't need to learn new languages. They just need to enable the toolkit from Zama.
Exactly, because look, what do people want? People want to focus on building great products. Nobody wants to spend their time learning a new programming language or something like that. I think a lot of people in crypto, they like to overcomplicate things. They like to invent new things which are really useless. We're very pragmatic at Zama. We're like, okay, what do people use? They use Solidity for smart contracts on EVM. Okay, maybe Solidity is not the best language. It doesn't matter. If this is what people use, this is what we should actually integrate with, period, right? On Solana, people use Rust. That's what we're going to be integrating with. We go wherever developers are. We don't ask developers to change their habits because they're already too busy figuring out how to build a good product. The focus of a developer is to build a good product. It's not to learn a new programming language that some stranger invented just for fun. I know 27 programming languages. It doesn't mean I want to use 27 programming languages,
You just mentioned about the mainnet launch. Yeah, could you share more details to us?
Absolutely. We have been in testnet since July with incredible traction. Hundreds of thousands of people interact with it. In fact, it's been so successful that we had to shut down the testnet because we were saturating the Ethereum testnet with Zama transactions. So we're like, okay, maybe we have to take it down a little bit. It's back up now, so you can use it today. And we are planning to also do a public auction to sell 10% of the supply of the Zama token. But here's a trick. The Zama public auction will use Zama to hide the bids of people participating. So the Zama auction...
That's a live use case.
Exactly. It is very nice, because when you do what's called a sealed bid auction, then there is no advantage for bots or anything like that. So you're preventing front running from bots who would steal the auction. So doing it with sealed bids is actually a very fair mechanism. And the reason why we're doing an auction is because I believe that the only way to know the price of something is to let other people decide how much they want to pay for it, right? So sure, Zama raised $150 million and our last valuation was 1.2 billion. But if you think that this is too expensive, you can bid under, see what happens, right? And so we're telling people that Zama is a VC-backed company that raised hundreds of millions of dollars, but Zama is not deciding the price of the token. The community decides the price of the token. In an auction, they use Zama to hide the bids and make it fair against bots and other people participating. Those auction tokens are going to be completely unlocked. And this is actually what's going to be floating on day one. So, the reason we're doing this is because we want as many people as possible to hold Zama tokens. We want them to have Zama tokens because they can use them in the Zama protocol, or maybe they're developers who want to build application, or maybe you want to become an operator of the Zama protocol and you need tokens. So we need as many people to hold those tokens to participate and use the Zama protocol.
Well, this is exciting news.
Yeah, it will be the first showcase on Zama mainnet.
It'll be the first token on Zama mainnet. And I think Zama is probably one of the first companies to do a public sale after we launch mainnet. Usually people do pre-sales. We don't do a pre-sale. This is not fundraising. We already have money. We don't need more money to build the Zama protocol. We built it already. We're launching it, and then we're doing the public auction to distribute the token to as many people as possible who want to participate and help us grow the ecosystem.
And using the bid, the confidential bid use case, and let everyone experience how FHE works. That's a very interesting mechanism.
I think it's a very good mechanism for price discovery and for distribution. I actually think that this kind of encrypted auction, this could be like the Echo or Pump Fund use case for Zama, if you think about it. I think a lot of people are going to do this in the future. This is going to be a very, very common way to launch tokens.
And what will be the Zama's token utility?
So the token is a utility token that is used for fees and staking. So every time you're encrypting and decrypting data in the Zama protocol, you have to pay a small fee in Zama tokens. We burn those tokens. So 100% of the fees in the protocol are burnt by the protocol automatically. On the other side, we have an emission schedule. So every year we're minting tokens to pay for the operators running the Zama protocol and to reward people who are delegating their stake to help secure the protocol. It's like similar to Ethereum and Solana. So there is token burning for the fees, and then there is minting of tokens for the rewards. And so by doing that, you're effectively creating a good balance between usability and security of the protocol. So again, the Zama token is very simple. We're not reinventing anything. It's like a pretty basic mechanism. The one thing we added, which is a little bit different, is the price of using Zama is actually in dollars, even though you pay with Zama tokens. Why is this important? If you're a developer, you want to know how much it's going to cost you to use Zama, right? And if Zama becomes too expensive to use because the Zama token price goes up, that's not a very good developer experience. By making the price fixed in dollars, developers have predictability on how much it's going to cost them to use the Zama protocol, regardless of the fluctuations of the price of the Zama token, right? And this is how it would work in any Web2 company, actually, if you think about it. So we're thinking about pricing the way that you would do it in a cloud or SaaS type of product in Web2.
The cost for developers and institutions are predictable.
It has to be predictable. Otherwise, nobody's going to use it.
Talking about these scenarios, I have found Zama how it turns the use case not only the blockchain, but to some Web2 companies like healthcare, AI inference, government's data sharing. How do the requirements in these sectors differ from the blockchain?
I think the big difference between Web2 and Web3 companies is blockchains are public infrastructure. So there is no way to keep things private on a public blockchain unless you use FHE. So FHE and blockchain is solving a major, major problem and is creating new opportunities that would not exist otherwise. In Web2, most companies don't make the data public, right? They basically just tell you, hey, trust me, I'm good at cybersecurity. I'm not going to get hacked. Your data is protected on my servers. So for them, FHE is not a requirement in the same way as Web3 companies need it. It's a nice to have for better security and privacy of their user data. So I think eventually everything in Web 2 is also going to be encrypted with FHE, but there's less urgency to use it than there is in Web 3 at the moment. So that's going to take a lot more time. But I think eventually it's going to happen too, right? It's just a matter of time. So Zama today is focusing on financial use cases on blockchains. I think the next big thing for us is going to be government services on chain. So we see more and more governments wanting to do on-chain elections. You know, you need privacy for that. To do on-chain identity, you need privacy for that. Or, you know, like if you buy a house, your house ownership will be on-chain as well. You want also privacy for that. You know, you don't want people to know who owns the house and how much they paid for it. So all of those government services are going to be moving on-chain and will require FHE for privacy. And then eventually, you'll have AI and non-blockchain use cases as well, right? So that's the end game. And the vision we have, you know, for the company is that if we are successful in the future, privacy is no longer something people care about, not because it's not important, but because it will become the default in every application you're using on-chain or online. So think of Zama like, remember before when you bought a computer, there was like a small sticker that said Intel inside?
Yeah.
You know? So
Yes.
Zama is basically this for privacy, right?
Zama inside.
Zama inside, exactly.
Yeah, talking about the AI companies, yeah, there is a hot topic. Yeah, now more and more people using ChatGPT, Anthropic, and Gemini. Yeah, we are contributing data every day to these AI companies. Yeah, do you think these companies will use FHE in future?
Absolutely. Actually, I talked to all of them. I know the CEOs and all of these guys from all those big AI companies. I mean, remember, I come from AI myself.
Yes.
Right? So, you know, it's, in fact, actually, AI is the first thing that made me want to work on privacy. You know, so
Oh, wow.
if anything, like, I care a lot about privacy in AI. Yeah. It's just like from a business perspective, as I said, there is no urgency, okay? Because people are using AI by trusting those companies at the moment. That will change. That will change. I think after blockchain and governments, AI obviously is going to start adopting FHE for privacy. But this is going to take a little bit longer to do. It's not going to be something immediate.
Yeah, I can imagine that people feed more and more personal data and memory to the AI LLM. Then it will become more and more urgent for people to care about it.
Yes, I believe that. But it's going to take more time. Blockchain is immediate. People need it now because without privacy and blockchain, they cannot build all those financial applications.
What will be the use case in blockchain in finance that you are particularly bullish about? You look forward to see build on Zama?
I mean, the obvious ones, payments, stablecoin payments is a very clear one where you need privacy. Asset management. So anytime you want to buy, sell, manage a portfolio of tokenized assets, whether it's crypto or tokenized stocks, any kind of tokenization RWA project will need privacy for people to use them on chain privately. And trading eventually as well. You know, I mean, we've all seen, for example, people in Hyperliquid, you know, people see your liquidation threshold. It's not a good thing. You know, you don't want to
run.
yeah, I mean, you don't want to show people when you're going to get liquidated, you know, because they're going to go and hunt you. So you want privacy for that as well.
Yes, if everything goes very well, what do you hope Zama becomes in 5 to 10 years?
I think Zama, HTTPS for blockchain, really. Like it's 95% of blockchain transactions will be encrypted with Zama in the future. That's my goal. And if you believe that blockchain is going to grow, you know, we're talking millions of transactions per second eventually.
Just like now, when we are using the Web2 IAMs, like by default, we think end-to-end encryption is the standard. So maybe several years from now, the end-to-end encryption for all the blockchain transactions should be a new norm.
Exactly. That's exactly the goal. You know, the goal is you don't think about it anymore because that's how it is by default.
That's great.
That's a big business. If Zama is successful at encrypting 95% of blockchain transactions in the future, I think we can say that we achieved something big, something useful. And it's actually needed, right? Zama is not a meme coin. Zama is actually building real utility that is solving real problems. So I'm very excited about that. I wouldn't be building this unless I thought that this could be solving a major problem and that this could become a major successful company.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. How large is the TAM of this market?
Well, I mean, imagine if you took, I don't know, 1 cent on every financial transaction in the world. How big is that market? That is basically the market for Zama. Pretty big. I don't even know what the number is. Big enough that I can actually
Yes.
build a good business from that.
Maybe exceed your expectation again after 5 years.
Okay, I'll give you one statistic. Global finance, so payments, asset management, trading, everything together, is a $150 trillion market. Okay? If you take 1 cent of every transaction in this $150 trillion market, it's a pretty big market. I don't know what the number is, but it's probably trillions. I don't think we have to even think about it. I think our job should be make this work, make this scale, make this cheap, and make sure everybody uses it without thinking twice. And if we're successful in achieving that, then the company will be very successful.
What is the biggest challenge to drive partnerships or usage of FHEs, like enable Zama in different blockchains? What is the biggest challenge for the team now?
The only challenge is launching mainnet. I mean,
Yeah.
we had over 1,000 conversations with potential partners and customers, right? People want to use FHE, but they didn't have a way to use FHE because nobody launched FHE in mainnet. Zama is the first company to put FHE in production. As soon as Zama goes in mainnet, we're expecting that adoption will be very fast because there is a lot of demand and a lot of need for this thing.
Wow. So really look forward to that in the next quarter.
Me
like
too.
in
Very,
the
very
next
exciting.
months and quarters. Yeah.
Very exciting. A little bit scary too, but that's at some point you gotta just do it. So yeah, it's happening. It's real.
Do you have any metrics like North Star for the Zama's development?
So we look at 3 metrics. The first one is performance. So how fast, how many transactions per second, how cheap it is to use that. So to paraphrase Toli from Solana, the goal for Zama is to make latency lower, bandwidth higher, and cost cheaper. Okay, so that's that's a goal. So as I mentioned, 10x every year on that. So I think we're doing good progress. On the Zama protocol side, we look at 2 metrics. One of them is revenue. So how many fees are basically collected and burned by the protocol. And the second one is something that we call total confidential TVL, basically. So total value encrypted. So how much dollars sits in confidential stablecoins, because that's also a very good indication of adoption by finance, right? If every stablecoin is encrypted, if every crypto token is encrypted, then your TSV, total shielded value, TVS, total value shielded, right? I think that's the exact word. Yeah. So total value shielded, revenue, and performance are the things that we look at.
Performance, revenue, TVS.
Yeah. And we'll make those public, of course. So you'll have like a dashboard, a Dune dashboard where you can track all of those things. So this will be publicly visible. So Zama, the company, will be very, very transparent with metrics so that people can follow the progress of the company as well.
That's great.
Yeah, we watched a demo of Zephyr. Yeah, during the total
the
2020.
Singapore event.
Yeah, they also use the term shared.
Yeah, so Zcash was the first one to use the term shielding. When you convert your Zcash to shielded Zcash. So I think now the whole privacy community is starting to use shield as a term for encrypted, right? So whatever people say is the right word, we're going to use the right word.
Just to making sense here, for example, for a transaction on Ethereum mainnet, one usage of encryption and decryption, like how much is the cost usually?
The cost of encryption and decryption depends on volume. So an application that does a lot of encryption and decryption will pay less than an application that doesn't do a lot of it. For example, if you're doing like a payment app where you're doing, thousands of transactions per hour, then the cost will be less than 1 cent per transaction. If you're an application that people use once a month, maybe the cost is going to be $1 per transaction.
Okay.
It depends on volume. Again, the same way you would do it in Web 2. In Web 2, the more you use a service, the cheaper it gets. Same idea here for the Zama protocol.
So I guess the cost will be cheaper and the speed will be faster. That will be the trends coming in next several years.
Yeah, exactly. Faster, cheaper, more bandwidth. Again, Solana, I think, really understood that. We want to basically copy Solana's philosophy on this. It's lower latency, increased bandwidth, make fees cheaper. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe some last questions about you yourself, because we are also very curious that you had experience in AI, in crypto, and in biotech, and now you are investing in those areas, like in the intersections of all these three. So what kind of companies or technologies, what kind of topics are you looking for? Are you mostly interested in for the future?
As an investor, I like to invest in early stage deep tech companies. So companies trying to solve a big science or engineering problem. So I've invested a lot in longevity biotech. So for example, I invested in a company that is working on replacing parts of your brain when you age. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. I've invested in a company that is helping, extend longevity by rejuvenating your cells. So making your cells younger. I've also invested in a company that is building miniature small MRIs that you can have in every doctor's office instead of going to the hospital to get an MRI.
whoa.
I've invested in new mental health treatments. For example, I invested in a company called Gilgamesh. I invested at a 10 million valuation 5 years ago. They just got acquired for 1.2 billion. So I like to be very early. My pitch to founders is if they go to VCs and VCs don't understand what they're building, they should come to me instead. So I also do, of course, a lot of AI companies. I do a lot of hardware, semiconductor companies. So I invest in quantum computing, I invest in photonics, all of these things. And crypto, blockchain is also something I invest in actively. In blockchain specifically, I'm investing more in infrastructure, not so much on application.
So really into the deep tech and sometimes a little bit like sci-fi technologies.
Yeah, it's my money, right? So I invest in what I think is interesting, what I like, and I invest in the future I want to see exist. And I think, there's another one that's interesting, actually. I invested in a fusion company doing nuclear fusion. And that company actually discovered that their technology could be used. It's not a joke, it's for real. They discovered that they can use their technology to transform mercury into gold. So they can actually, they can actually produce gold, which is
Alchemist.
amazing. It's amazing. I was like, it doesn't get better than that. You can check them out. They're called Marathon Fusion. Incredible guys.
Super interesting. Is there a book or paper that has deeply influenced you? Maybe you want to recommend to our audience?
A book or paper that influenced me. That's a good question. There's actually one book, it's a very small book, very short book. But I think that book is interesting because it was the first time that people really talked about the concept of decentralized ecosystems, about DAOs and things like that. It was back in the 1980s, very long time ago, way before crypto existed. It's a book by someone called Hakim Bey called The Temporary Autonomous Zones. And in that book, he's basically explaining how you can create temporary communities that can actually completely change the way that societies are actually working. So I think that's interesting because a lot of the culture in crypto can be traced back to that book, actually. So that, I think, is a good introduction. Otherwise, it's not fun to read, but I love reading science books. When I mean science books, I mean I'll read like a book on quantum physics for fun, for example. I think it's super interesting to learn about science in general, to understand how the world actually works. It's fascinating.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also found a word in your biohacker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I experiment a lot on myself. I do a lot of experiments. A few years ago, I experimented by becoming obese. So I went from being normal to gaining 35 kilos in 1 year because I wanted to see what it would look like and how I could lose it quickly. And then I lost it again and I become super fit. So I love to experiment on myself. And at the moment, I'm doing the opposite. I'm experimenting with longevity. So I'm trying to reduce my speed of aging as much as possible. So right now, my current speed of aging is 0.68. So basically, I age 30% slower than chronologically. And that puts me in the top 20 on, Brian Johnson has a leaderboard of people competing on longevity. I'm in the top 20 now. So very happy about that. Yeah. So, people say that launching a token in a company is very tiring. I think for me, it's been actually good for my longevity somehow.
So it's also an experiment for you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think health is something that you cannot ignore when you're trying to do things which are ambitious. I mean, it's a good mind in a good body, right? So you need to be healthy for your brain to be creative, to be functional, right? And I think if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to solve big problems over a very long period of time, you need to be healthy to sustain the effort on such a long period, right? So you have to choose. It's either you're healthy and you can build something super big over a very long time, or you're going to burn out. And for me, I want to spend my next 10, 20 years building Zama, and I need to make sure that my body can support that.
It's already slowed down the aging. Oh, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Zuen. Yeah, I think we have learned a lot about the privacy, FHE, Zama, and even longevity.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Many deep tech futures.
Yeah. Do you have anything else want to share?
Well, maybe just if people are interested in following Zama, our Twitter X account is just @Zama. And you can also message me directly, Rand Hindi on X. My DMs are open. Always love to interact with the community. If you have any feedback, any ideas on how we can make Zama better, please share them. I'd love to talk about it.
That's great. We'll put it in our show notes in the link below.
Great.
Oh, I forgot one very important question.
Yes.
Yeah. For our audience, like some users, some developers, is there any way they can participate with Zama?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have actually a creator program and a developer program that you can participate in. So if you go on the zama.org website, you'll find links to that. As a creator, we have a monthly leaderboard of the most impactful creators in the Zama community. We actually distribute between $50,000 and $100,000 a month to creators in the Zama community. And for developers, we also give them all the support that we can. We'll basically subsidize some of the protocol fees for them when they build applications. So really trying to make sure that if you want to build on the Zama protocol, we're giving you as much support as we can. So yeah, if you're a creator or a developer and you want to help, just come and participate in one of our programs and let's do this together.
And for users, stay tuned for the next month or next quarter. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. For users and for people who want to participate in the Zama auction, we're going to be talking a lot more about that.
Yes,
Thank you.
And the TG will come along with the auction, right?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah. So we're looking forward to them, and we'll continue following the Zama's progress.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you a lot for the time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you, Ren.
All right. Speak to you soon. Bye, everyone.
I
Bye. Have a good day.